you?
I recently turned 70.
Wow, 70. How was your experience with your facelift?
I was thrilled. I was so happy I can't tell you. And I had postponed making the decision for probably 10 to 15 years because all my friends had started having in their mid-50s, but I was very ambivalent and I wasn't sure I could afford it and all these things. And now that I've done it, I can't believe how much of a difference it made. I'm just totally thrilled.
And how long ago was your facelift?
About 16 months ago at this point. Yeah, I was 60. It was just shortly before my 69th birthday I had it. So I know that's late in terms of when a lot of women first consider it. And in retrospect, I wish I would have done it 10 years earlier, probably.
Did your friends notice?
Well, it's interesting because on one hand they didn't notice, and yet people would look at me and say, "You're looking so relaxed." And I was only working part-time, I was partially retired, so people just said, "Oh, retirement's really agreeing with you." And they kept saying all these things, but they didn't associate it with having a surgery. The only person who really, really noticed something is I had a colleague who is retired from the FBI. And when I met him at a party, he starts looking at me and he says, "I've been trained to look at faces. Something's different about you." And he still couldn't put his finger on what it was, but he kept saying, "Something's really different." And then finally I told him.
Do you think you look like 5 years younger?
Oh, according to the comments that I got from people I hadn't seen for a while, I would say it's more like 15 years younger. I mean, because I never had a lot of problems with wrinkling so much. What I had was sagging. And sagging is something that happens really gradually. And it also is something that you have to kind of look at yourself in profile to really realize how bad it's gotten at a certain point. If you just look at yourself, face forward in a mirror every morning, you don't really notice it much. But when I started seeing the pictures of my profile, I was going, "Oh my God, I can't believe how old I look." And plus the other thing I kept saying, "I look like my grandmother, I look like my dad," And then once I had the surgery, I sent pictures to my sister who lived out of town, and she was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it. You look like you're, in your 40s.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Would you recommend that surgery to your friends and family?
Absolutely, and I would particularly recommend, though, Dr. Maia specifically, but the thing about waiting for me, part of it had to do with my ambivalence about which physician to choose. And a lot of my friends had gone to people who were long established in the area, who were people actually more of my own age. And I had the impression when I had consults with them that they were kind of like doing the same procedure year after year after year. It was kind of a very standardized approach. And I felt that I took a little bit of a risk with going with Dr. Maia, who was so much younger and none of my friends had known her and stuff. But what excited me about her was that she seemed to be really up to date with what was new in the field. She wasn't just doing the same thing, for the past 25 years. Because I have to admit, some of my friends who had these more traditional procedures, they had announced it before they went off, take a few weeks off work, and they came back. Of course, in some ways you're being polite by saying, "Oh, you look so good and everything," but there was one or two folks, I couldn't tell the difference. I really couldn't figure out, even knowing them as well, these were people I worked with every day, and I thought this change was so subtle, and I felt that the change I experienced was kind of like the best of both worlds. It was like dramatic if you could really look at the pictures, and for me it was dramatic, and at the same time it was kind of like just looking like myself again. And even my adult children basically looked at me and said, "You look like we always remembered you when we were young." And so it was like easy for them to adapt. They weren't kind of saying, "Oh, you look so different." To them it was looking more like myself.